morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 4 and episode number 486 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah! Today, recording day is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. And it looks like it'll be a pretty decent day here at the Beaver Lodge. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health doing today, sir?
It's a good question. Good question. No, I had another evening of bizarre, nightmarish dreams. So yeah, that's the best I can give you right now. It's a kind of a meh. It's a meh at the moment. I'm sure it'll improve as the day marches on because I do have a lot planned today. But right now I'm not great at the moment just because I'm still trying to recover from the vivid, freakish nightmares that are accompanied with sertraline, or created by sertraline, I guess you could say.
Okay. You have Kit Linda M in the chat going that Douglas is doing the Veronica Lake thing today.
Oh, yeah.
Except I'd have to have it over the eye a little bit like this somehow. To actually pull that off. But thank you. There are far worse people to be compared to than Veronica Lake.
Indeed.
Especially when it comes to beauty and fashion. Good morning to our kits today. Good morning, Kit Mohan. And hello, family, including Milo, because I've heard that Milo has learned to watch TV and watches us on the TV screen. So, meow, meow.
Okay.
Kit Elaine, Kit Danielle, or Kit Dan, I should say. So Daniel. I've never called you Daniel. Kit Dan. How you doing, my friend? Kit Wishful, lovely to see you this morning. Kit Mr. Jim, hello. And Kit Miss Lori as well. Kit Vim, hello, my dear. And who else do we have with us? Kit Linda M, of course. Kit Kyle, hey, my man. Nice to see you this morning. Good. Kit Frankie, Kit Lori, hey, Lori Sue. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Kit Jen, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Who else? Mademoiselle Fox, hello, lovely. I hope you're doing well. All right, and that's everyone that's getting in under the wire for the hellos this morning. All right, kids and cubs. Something interesting happened yesterday.
You could say that.
I don't think we're talking about the same thing at all here.
Oh, okay.
But put a pin in yours because I do want to talk about it.
Okay.
Yesterday, as you know, we had some tech issues getting the show started, and we only had a 40-minute show.
Oh, I had the same issues this morning, by the way.
Oh, lovely.
I was able to detect it before we tried to go live, though, so I was able to fix it, but I don't know what is going on right now.
Yeah. So, so we had we were planning to have a short show to begin with, and we ended up having an even shorter show. We actually changed our show on the fly because we were going to focus on Saskatchewan elections. But yesterday was a very, very important day worldwide because it was October 7th, which means it had been 1 year since
the Hamas attack on Israel.
Yes. We didn't talk about it yesterday. Now, that's not new for us. We often don't talk about things that happen on the day of the commemoration, often on the show. Sometimes we do, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We talked about it on the day, but we also did a recap 3 days later because we had 2 days of pre-programmed interviews. Often on this show, I prefer not to give a hot take on the day of. Rather have information collect over a few days, have some time to think about it, give you something that's a little more than, hey, this just crossed our screen, mention it, oh my God, isn't it terrible, and then move on.
Right.
Try to offer you a little bit more substance. Yesterday, given that I figured we had about half an hour, 35 minutes, that would not have been enough time.
No, goodness no.
With an intro and an extra and me being rushed to have to get someplace, we didn't have the time to treat the matter with the respect that it deserved. So we decided to hold off. This did not make everybody happy.
Yeah, a lot of people. I got some angry messages from people about this.
I got some angry messages as well. One of the messages that we got was, quote, we're not going to say from whom. Terrorist supporters are trying to take over the streets and schools, and you guys say nothing. The left is lost. I wish you well. Bye. To whomever wrote that to us, we are extremely sorry to lose you. However, we are not the left.
No.
Number one. Number two, in case anybody has any doubt, nobody puts the show on but us. There's nobody at Crier Media that tells us what to cover today, that gives us suggestions for stories, that tells us how to cover something, what editorial bent to take.
We have free reign, 100% free reign.
So
it's actually in our contract.
So if there's something in the show that you would like to be there that's not there, the only person that you have to blame is us. We take full responsibility. We understand that we are not going to please everybody all the time. And we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Because we learned fairly early on in this process that when we had a show that connected or a subject that connected, we could turn around and say, okay, well, that worked. That got us clicks. Let's do more of that. But we've also learned that when you try to do stuff to get the clicks, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It's not authentic. It's not genuine. So we don't try. We don't pander. We tell you what we think in the given moment at the given day. And our opinions are open to changing and evolving over time. But there are a couple of things about the subject about which we've been rather consistent. One, that the people of Israel are not the Netanyahu government, that the people of Palestine are not Hamas, that the people, and we can extend to that the people of Iran are not the Iranian regime, and that the people of Lebanon are not Hezbollah. We've always tried to look at this at a human level, understanding that we live in a multicultural, multi-religious, pluralistic society.
Correct.
We do this assuming that we have listeners from both the Jewish community and the Muslim community and the Arab Christian community, from all three, and people who happen to be Arab and Jewish who don't particularly practice faith. We assume that any type of person with any type of belief could be tuning into our show.
Mm-hmm. At any time.
People who agree with us, people who do not. We also consistently like to present the real politic. And the real politic usually makes nobody happy. Because their real politic is often situations that we would like to be different, but are not. And are not about to change anytime soon.
Correct.
And over which we as individuals, two schlubs in their homes, have very little power to change. Now, we can say all the right things for one group and say nothing right for the other. We can pick a side, we can pick a group. But even if we did that, how far we go? You mentioned all of this, but you didn't mention this one thing. So therefore, there's no way to adopt a line that will please everyone. And one of the real politics of this situation is that when you are the prime minister of the nation, that has a certain proportion of people of the Jewish faith and a certain proportion of people of the Muslim faith, you don't have the luxury to go all in and pick a side.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the luxury. Now, if you're the leader of the opposition, you might.
Yeah.
But as leader of a nation, you don't. We do our show for everyone. We do not have an option of picking a side. However, I think we can pretty much all agree that genocide is wrong, because another position that we have consistently had on this show is we said never again for a reason.
Yeah, we meant that.
But we assume that never again applies to everyone. All around the world. There should not be genocide anywhere.
No.
Against anyone.
Live and let live.
For any reason. I don't know how we can be more clear about these things. Now, we don't cover this subject breathlessly every day. We come in, we come out, there are developments, but all throughout our coverage, we have been pretty consistent on the fact that our concern is for human lives. Whether they be Palestinian lives, whether they be Lebanese lives, whether they be Jewish lives, whether they be Iranian lives, our concern is for human lives. We don't want anybody suffering.
That's what we've said from day one. It's that we're more concerned about the innocents caught in the crossfire over a war they have no control over.
Now, when it comes to what's happening in Canada, that what's going on over there seems to be spilling over here. We have been incredibly consistent with, and this is not just to this subject, but with many other subjects. There are tactics that people use in protest that are probably not advisable. If you want your protest to reach out and make friends and allies and try to be persuasive rather than performative or intimidating, that there's certain behaviors that are probably unwise, and a lot of them that are unacceptable. And we've had no problem talking about that, particularly when it comes to the protesters who are on the pro-Palestinian side. We've talked about them ripping up grass off university campuses, causing damage, saying that's not okay. We've talked about them hijacking other events. Saying it's not appropriate. We've talked about instances of vandalism and intimidation that are not appropriate. This should not be happening. We cannot be more clear. This should not be happening in Canada. In Canada, we should be able to talk to each other somewhat calmly and rationally. We've shown examples like MP Talib Noor Mohammed, who brought together the Prime Minister and leaders of the Jewish community and leaders of the Muslim community, try to have some discussion, some roundtables about the subject. This is a problem and an issue that both of us, from our little platform somewhere in the world, have very little power to change. We recognize that. That doesn't mean that we are absolved of the duty and responsibility to speak out. But however, one of the things that I think I've been consistent about is other people trying to impose their agenda on everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
We want your input into our programming. Your compliments, your constructive criticism. We want it. We want to know how we land. We want to know how we come across. So for those who were disappointed by the fact we mentioned it yesterday, or that we are constantly looking at how this impacts all the innocents. I guess I can say I'm sorry that we were not able to give you what it is that you wanted from us. But we were probably not the place to come if you wanted us to be all in on one side or another. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the knowledge. Right? And other than being a human being, sharing the planet with other human beings and sharing the same air, and opposing the murder of anyone or any genocidal movement against anyone, I don't know how to lead this parade. And I'm certainly not going to purport that I have the influence or draw or reach or even the, how would I put it, that it would even be welcome to take on a bigger role. I'm not a member of either of these communities. The leadership is not mine to take. I will stand for decency, and I will stand for no more hurting people with anyone who stands for that and actually means it, and their actions follow their words. I will definitely stand right behind you, right behind your shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
with my hand on the small of your back, giving you my strength and my energy. But I can't lead this. And this show is a show about overall politics and culture. I can't make the show entirely about this subject. Yes, there is genocide, and yes, I understand fully the line that it's genocide. How can you not be talking about this every day? I understand that. But I wouldn't even have the knowledge. Literally, the show would be, oh my God, that's terrible. We really need to stop that. Oh, that's terrible. We really, really stop that. Oh, that's terrible. The government should do. But that would be it.
Well,
It's like, and again, as a guy with a communications degree saying the government really should be doing this in the middle, I don't know what needs to be done.
how many times
I'm
have
not that smart.
We've said time and time again, we don't have a solution to this. We don't have any skin in the game. And we don't understand why people are constantly protesting in the streets of downtown Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto about a war that our nation is not in, number one, and number two. What do you expect Canada to do exactly? We don't have the power to end this. One nation on earth can put a stop to this if they choose to.
And even then, it doesn't even look like they
No.
could at the moment. Even of that, I'm doubtful. Now, we could do things like stop export permits for weapons and that type of stuff, which we have not done.
That should be done.
Right? There are other things. I don't know all the ethics around that, right? As a layperson, I'm sitting there and I said, well, if you believe that Israel has the right to defend itself, but you won't share weapons with it, then how does it defend itself? But if the current government of the state of Israel at the moment is not using those weapons in accordance with international law, and there are innocents that are the victims of that, how could I also take the position and be consistent about wanting to stand for the innocents? That we should just allow them to be taken out with no limitations whatsoever. It's an impossible situation. Any position we would take on that puts some people more at risk than the others. And we're not foreign affairs experts. We're certainly not military experts. Maybe if all the Western countries cut their exports, Israel would not be able to continue taking action, and that could open an avenue for peace. But maybe it also could leave them as sitting ducks.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
What will happen. And we certainly wouldn't want the Israeli people to be left as sitting ducks.
Oh, goodness, no.
And then conversely, you could say, well, give them all the weapons they want because Hamas is genocidal. Okay. But there are already tens of thousands of dead.
41,000.
If we believe the Palestinian Health Authority.
Correct. That is the number that's been given to us. We don't know the actual number.
Yeah.
Could be higher, could be lower. We don't know.
We don't know. Could be a propaganda number, could be a real number. It could be a case where the truth is bad enough that they don't need to inflate the number, and it could be a story. We don't know. But we have our minds open to the possibility that it can be either. But we also know that there's a situation that there's people there that have nothing to do with this who are being killed as well. So it's different if you're living it. It's different if you have people that you love and care about that are there. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're not both feet fully, unequivocally in one camp, saying, and the other side is all bad all the time, no matter what, must be eliminated, do whatever it takes. That position will satisfy some and will not please the majority. And in either community, nobody's a monolith, right? We've reported about Jewish people who are firmly against all of it, and Jewish people in Israel itself that are protesting against their government. It is a horrible human tragedy. And October 7th was nothing other than a brutal, vile, cruel massacre. There is no doubt about that. There's no debating that. About 1,200 people dead in one day.
Mm-hmm.
The largest mass extinction of Jewish people since the Holocaust. 364 of them alone at the Nova Music Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Another 100 or so at a kibbutz, if not more. It wasn't just death or murder. People were defiled. Hostages were taken. On that kibbutz, 101 civilians were murdered and 30 security personnel. That was more than 1/10 of the population of the kibbutz in 3 square kilometers. Some 340 gunmen, some of them wearing Israel Army uniforms. Whether those were stolen. But they dissimulated, hid themselves by wearing Israeli uniforms. Kibbutz Be'eri was first hit by rockets, then infiltrated by those 340 so gunmen who went house to house kidnapping and killing civilians. Greater than 300 hostages were taken on that day. 101, it is estimated, are still in captivity, and it is estimated that about 35 of them are considered or believed to be dead already. In Canada, some Canadians are feeling this particularly strong because 8 Canadians have died, lost their lives, and everything that has been going on. And it's not like anti-Semitism wasn't on the rise prior to October 7th in the country. But now it's on freaking steroids.
It's the 88 Olympics 100-meter race between Ben Johnson and Carl Lewis. Everybody was juiced.
There were things going on even yesterday at McGill University. There were people there smashing buildings, taking over campuses, doing things that would make a lot of people feel unsafe and unwelcome.
Mm-hmm.
Things that should not be happening. We cannot be any more clear. Destruction of property and causing harm to people, whether physically, emotionally, or psychologically. is never okay. It's always unacceptable. Doesn't matter who does it or for what reason. But in this particular reason, this particular case, where there is already a climate of fear and loss and intimidation and anger and sadness and pain, it's all the more unacceptable. If ever there's one subject with which we should be making additional efforts to come to the table with open hearts and open souls and open minds, it's something like this. We have seen on Canadian soil vandalism and threats against synagogues, against schools, public events. There have been terror plots that have been foiled. Terror plot against Jewish Canadians and the Jewish community here in Canada, and terror plots for people that were trying to get to the United States to negatively impact the Jewish community through Canada. We've seen the worst that people have to offer, the worst of humanity. I don't know what the path forward is. I don't know what the path forward is. But I do know, and the one thing that I can promise you, is that if you are someone that believes that we should be doing all that we can to reduce the collateral damage, and that there should be no collateral damage, and that the violence and the racism, the religious supremacy, and everything that goes in to that toxic brew that is spilling out onto our Canadian streets and into Canadian politics, that should not be there. We've got you. Because that's what we believe too. But the programming and the message of the show is going to remain in our hands. We can't surrender that. So if you have left us because what we have done is insufficient, we are sorry to lose you. We deeply, deeply are sorry to lose you. We are sorry that we could not be what you needed. But we can't be other than what and who we are as well. We don't want to pander. This is not the type of issue on which we pander. Speaking of that, there was an event yesterday.
I don't want to show the video. I don't want to show it. I'll show it if you need me to, but I don't want to show it.
Which video are you speaking of, Mr. Grizzly?
Protesters in Vancouver shouting death to Canada.
No, we don't need to show that. We don't need to show that. This is not how you make friends, build allyships, and influence people.
So a lot of people are getting bent out of shape that they tore up and burned a Canadian flag. I don't care for that, but here's the thing. That is a perfectly legal right to do in protest. There's no laws against that. I don't care for it, but there's no law against that. You are allowed to do that in protest. And I can understand how some people want to do that. But shouting death to Canada, the country that you came to, I'm very puzzled by this. I don't understand it. I fail to comprehend why you would come here and then make that declaration. It is abomination. It's an abomination to begin with, but why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I do not comprehend. I also, again, as I said earlier, what do you think we as a nation can do? Give me a solution.
Or even us as hosts.
Look, October 7th, 2023 was a terrorist massacre of innocents. Period. End of story. That is what took place. Innocent people were murdered by a terrorist organization. That is what took place. I don't know what else to say about it. It's horrible. I wish it never happened, but it did.
We had, there was an interview I was listening to yesterday with Richard Robinson of B'nai B'rith, Canada. It seems that B'nai B'rith and 2 other groups are seeking to criminalize the glorification of terrorism. They would like it to be illegal to display the flags of listed terrorist entities. I have no problem with that. People have been.
Does that not violate the Constitution when it comes to freedom of expression? No, I guess because the freedom of expression, it's what's deemed reasonable by society, right? So,
yes. Well, it's sort of like, listen, freedom of expression. Can you show up at a rally with a Nazi flag and start waving it around? I guess legally you can. I would rather that you couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I think
I believe that there is such thing as speech that provides absolutely no benefit to anyone whatsoever in society whatsoever.
Correct.
And is only toxic. So is waving a Nazi flag around enough to constitute hate speech and a hate act? If you're just standing there and waving it, after you're standing there and saying, like, we got to exterminate all people, like, clearly you've got some hate speech. That's the thing, right? So, but there is nothing positive that is represented by these flags.
Mm-hmm.
Would we all be better off without them flying around? Probably. Right? That's something, to me, that would be a reasonable limit, that we do not glorify genocide or terrorism. There are 2 people in Canada that have been charged with public incitement of hatred for displaying the Hezbollah flag recently. So we'll see where that goes judicially, whether our judicial system can handle that and has a place for that. But B'nai B'rith also reported that it had completed an audit of anti-Semitic incidents in Canada and published it in May of this year. And that 2023 was a record year in reported cases of violence, vandalism, and harassment, more than doubling to nearly 6,000 reports. And those are the ones that were only reported.
Mm-hmm. Not everything gets reported.
And they've concluded that Canada's Jewish community, the Jewish community within Canada, is under a threat to its survival perhaps not seen since the Holocaust. Now, Canada has revamped and exchanged its community security funding programs for religious buildings, daycares, cemeteries. But B'nai B'rith, Richard Robinson, is quoted as saying here, the government has the definition of anti-Semitism which was adopted in 2019. We haven't seen sufficient implementation. The Prime Minister's remarks today were fantastic. However, if the Prime Minister and his government aren't going to work to implement the definition of anti-Semitism, to ensure that Canadians understand what constitutes contemporary anti-Semitism, and to ensure that contemporary anti-Semitism in all of its forms will not be tolerated in our society, then we can't expect to see reduction in the levels of contemporary anti-Semitism that we are presently facing. And he's asking for funding to educate students. All of this I agree with. If we have a definition and we are not fully implementing it fully, if we're not fully implementing it, then yes, right? Law is always implemented and enforced at discretion. So maybe there is something to that part. MPs held a moment of silence in the House for the victims of October 7th. There was also unanimous consent for this motion from Conservative Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman, which reads that this House unequivocally reaffirms Israel's right to defend itself from the terrorists who attack it, express its support for the victims of October 7th and their families and the people of Israel, that calls for the immediate release of the 101 hostages still being held captive, condemns the grotesque rise in anti-Semitism and hate towards Jews in Canada over the past year, and condemns Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorist entities which must be eliminated. I see why that got unanimous support.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was an event that took place yesterday in Ottawa. It was organized by the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, if I remember correctly. And it's supposed to be a nonpartisan event. The Prime Minister did the prime ministerial thing. The leader of the opposition did not.
Big shocker there.
Yes.
That was sarcasm, by the way, for those who didn't detect it.
But what might shock Canadians who are not following this every day might be how this was received in the room. So, Mr. Grizzly, I would like you to go to the video I sent you and go to about 28:35.
Well, it's a 24-minute video, so I don't know how I can go to 28:35.
Really?
Yeah, 24 minutes and 32 seconds.
Oh, okay. Then that I must have sent you the wrong link somehow, which is really weird because I only downloaded one.
24 minutes and 32 seconds, so I can't go to 28.
Okay, no worries. I'll send you another link then, because the link was over. The thing was over an hour.
And the link I had was definitely less than an hour.
Okay, hold on. So it was an event that took place in Ottawa. And like I said, it was an anniversary event. It's a commemorative event where, there was somebody that recapped the events of October 7th.
I'm only getting 24 minutes out in that video as well. I don't know what's going on. It's only 24
it must, okay. It's a re-edited.
Yeah.
Okay. Then why does CPAC do this?
I don't know.
They press the full one and then they come back and they edit it back down. Because right now the one that I sent you said 1 hour and 14 minutes as I sent it to you. Okay, so all the timestamps are wrong, so I can't even show it. Okay, so what happened before, because this version of it does not have it for some reason, is they were announcing who are the guests that were coming to speak. And the Prime Minister got polite applause. And when the host of the event mentioned that the leader of the opposition was there, the applause got significantly louder, with some hoots and hollers as well. Everybody from the Jewish community that was mentioned that would come to speak got loud applause with some hoots and hollers. And then in general, it was mentioned that there were other MPs and members of parliament there, and they got polite applause.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a room that is very much predisposed to the message that Pierre Poilievre
clearly
has been sending. Now, in one way, this is not surprising because Pierre really has been all in on one camp. He talks about Muslim people here and there a little bit, but He really is. Like, we are the only party, essentially, that will be true friends of Israel. So he's pandering. And there are people in that room who are hurting. And want somebody to be full in on their side. And he's playing to that.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know, because we've been paying attention, that when it comes time to vote, he either votes no or is nowhere to be found. On the first day of Hanukkah, I keep on reminding you,
Mm-hmm.
he blocked all MPs, regardless of party,
Correct.
from showing up at the first day of Hanukkah for lighting ceremonies, because he scheduled his all-night vote-a-thon. But he went, though. He went. However, for him, it was just a front, because the real reason he was in the region was to go to a 4-digit, a plate fundraiser in Point Claire, while everybody else in his party did his dirty work on the vote-a-thon for him.
Well, and don't forget, he voted against funding.
Yep, that's what I'm getting there. Yes. So the only he arranged it such that the only images that day of a politician anywhere in Canada
Mm-hmm.
at a lighting ceremony was him. I stand with the Jewish community. Look at me. Nobody showed up but me. I won't tell you that I blocked everybody else from being able to show up. There could have been 338 MPs at events all over the country that day, really bringing attention to it. But there's only one star in Pierre's sky.
Mm-hmm.
So there was only him. And then he went there. Not only did he use that community as a front, saying, well, no, I was going for Hanukkah. So there just happened to be a fundraiser. Like the fundraiser was organized after the day he chose to pick the vote, and not before. Hall's got to be reserved, caterers got to be, but he wants you to, for what he is saying to be true, also had to be true that entire fundraiser was organized after the date he picked for the vote-a-thon. No. And then he went there, not only to exploit the community there, to give him a pretext not to be in-house that day and to go to that fundraiser, but he voted personally against funding a Holocaust museum in Montreal and a Jewish community center in Vancouver. He says he stands with them, but he doesn't vote for anything for them. And he uses them as a shield, as a political shield. Not to do something for the benefit of Canadians, but to be able to show up at a fundraiser. But he says the right things to the people who are in pain. He tries to draw contrast. I'm your buddy. I've got your back. I will stand with you. Those other guys won't. Those other guys, not only that those other guys won't, but those other guys are actively seeking to undermine you. It is, Kitland M. Skippy doesn't stand with anyone. He stands on top of them to get to the power he so desperately craves. That is well well stated. That's well stated because that's literally exactly what is going on. Wow. That's very... Kitten PNC bio. Conservatives pander hard to Israel. Their absurd evangelical eschatology lines up well with a conservative Jewish national government in Israel. That probably, definitely has something to do with it. Indeed. We've lost Mr. For people who are listening at home on the podcast version, Mr. Grizzly's had to step away for a couple of seconds. So if it appears that I'm stretching until he comes back, I am. When we're talking, if you aspire to be the leader of a pluralistic nation, but you are going to pit Canadians against each other, that's going to be a problem. The stuff that you see on the streets, that only inflames that. Unless you are going to be open to using the notwithstanding clause to take away some rights. To which he is open. Mr. Grizzly, since the clip starts at 24, it starts with the Prime Minister himself. This is what the Prime Minister had to say yesterday. The Prime Minister spoke in both English and French, and there was no translation services, and he didn't do this type of speech where he repeats in English immediately what he says in French. So when he's speaking in French, I'll probably have to take notes so that I can translate for you afterwards. So, Mr. Grizzly, when the Prime Minister finishes in speaking in French, I would ask that you pause the video so I can do the translation before continuing. That was not an issue with Pierre Poilievre, by the way.
Do you have the clip? I don't have the clip.
Oh, well, yes, the one that I sent you that starts that's only 24 minutes. We can just start right away. Yeah, we could start right away because it starts with the Prime Minister. It doesn't even start with the introduction of the Prime Minister, so you can see him come up to the podium and see how much applause he got, which was not a lot.
Just a moment. He starts in French.
He starts in French.
The clip that you sent me, he starts in French.
Okay. Then I don't know where it is in the clip because they literally, between 15 minutes before the show, whatnot, they uploaded a new clip and replaced the old one. So
this is all that I've got.
We'll start from where he starts.
All right, just a moment.
Damn you, CPAC.
Good evening. Bonsoir. Shalom. Thank you, Adam. Merci à tous ceux qui se joignent à nous aujourd'hui pour rendre hommage aux victimes.
All right. Thanks to everyone who joins us today to honor the victims.
Et aux survivants de l'attaque terroriste du 7 octobre perpétrée par Hamas.
And survivors of the October 7th attack perpetrated by Hamas.
Et surtout, merci à la Fédération juive d'Ottawa d'avoir organisé cette cérémonie solennelle et d'une très grande importance.
And especially thank you to the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, who organized this event, the solemn event of great importance.
Thank you to the parliamentarians from all parties who are putting partisanship aside to be here today, including members from my cabinet, Ministers Bill Blair, Mélanie Joly, Arif Virani, Mark Miller, Karina Gould, Jenna Suds, Terry Beach, Kamal Khera, Randy Boissonneau, Marcy Ian, Richie Valdez, Ahmed Hussein, and Stephen McKinnon, along with MPs Yasser Naqvi, Anita Vandenbelt, Marie-France Lalonde, Julie DeBrussen, Valerie Bradford, Francesco Sorbara, Judy Scrow, Terry Duguid, Lisa Hepner, Ali Essasi, and Joyce Murray. 365 days ago, we were all shaken to our very cores as we, Canadians, woke up on a peaceful autumn morning. Israelis and Jews across the globe were living a nightmare. 1,200 innocents murdered. Young revelers with their whole lives ahead of them slaughtered. Entire communities burnt to the ground. Children traumatized and orphaned. Women raped and mutilated. Families shattered and broken. Over 250 people forced into captivity at the barrel of a gun. The single deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. I want to sit with that for a second. Almost 80 years since the end of the Holocaust. Almost 80 years since we collectively said, never again. Terrorist organizations like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, still seek to harm Jews just because they are Jews. That's not being a freedom fighter. It's terrorism. Vile, anti-Semitic terrorism. And it makes me sick to my stomach. But the trauma of that day did not end on October 8th. What makes this barbaric attack that much more agonizing is the fact that you are reliving this nightmare every single day. You relive it when cowards shoot and smash the windows of your schools and synagogues in the middle of the night. You relive it when anti-Semites wave the flags of Hamas and Hezbollah in the streets of our cities. You relive it when too many of our fellow Canadians downplay or dismiss your pain, telling you that the generational trauma you carry and the anti-Semitism you experience somehow isn't real. You relive it when the term Zionist is tossed around as a profanity, a label for something other than what it truly means, believing in the right of Jewish people, like all people, to determine their own future, a right this government supports and always will. No one in Canada should ever be afraid to proudly call themselves a Zionist. Somewhat ironically, you relive it when you must conceal the location of this very event for fear of violence. Let me be frank. I believe it is unacceptable for any of this behavior to be normalized. It is incumbent on me and on every leader, from premiers to police chiefs, to give anti-Semitism no quarter, to stop this rising hate and to reverse its spread. And yet, in spite of the pain that you live with every day, you've all shown your remarkable resilience. In the hours immediately after October 7th, you came together as a community to stand by each other, to help those displaced by the attacks and the hostage families going through untold suffering. You've shown that the depravity of these terrorists will not break your spirit, that they will not take away your joy. You continue to proudly embody the motto that defines what it means to be a Jew, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. Par-dessus tout, je sais que vous continuerez à vivre ce cauchemar. Vous aurez le sentiment qu'il...
Overall, sorry, you'll have to respond it. I got thrown by the mic being muted. I forgot.
Sorry. Yeah, my mic was muted. Your mic was muted. I'll just back it up 1 second. Here we go.
Live. Par-dessus tout, je sais que vous continuerez à vivre ce cauchemar. Vous aurez le sentiment qu'il vous manque une partie de vous-même jusqu'à ce que les 101 otages qui se trouvent encore à Gaza soient libérés.
Overall, I
101
know that you are
personnes dont
overall I know that you are still living this nightmare. Too many words went by. It has to be shorter vlogs.
My apologies.
the people of Israel live.
I'll try it again.
Par-dessus tout, je sais que vous continuerez à vivre ce cauchemar.
Overall, I know that you will continue to live this nightmare.
Vous aurez le sentiment qu'il vous manque une partie de vous-même
You will have the feeling that there is a part of you that is missing
jusqu'à ce que les 101 otages qui se trouvent encore à Gaza
until the 101 hostages that are still within Gaza
soient libérés.
are liberated.
101 personnes dont la vie est toujours en jeu.
101 people whose lives are still in play.
101 personnes qui subissent des tortures, des sévices et des humiliations
101 people who are enduring torture and harm and humiliations
inimaginables.
unimaginable.
C'est tout simplement inacceptable.
It's simply unacceptable.
Nous devons mettre fin à ce conflit,
We must put an end to this conflict,
accroître l'aide humanitaire destinée aux centaines de milliers de Gazaouis,
increasing the humanitarian aid destined to hundreds of thousands of Gazans,
qui souffrent, faire en sorte que le Hamas dépose ses armes et abandonne le
to ensure that Hamas lays down its weapons and abandons its
contrôle de Gaza
control of Gaza,
et ramener les otages chez eux dès maintenant.
and returning the hostages home as soon as possible, immediately.
Nous devons, une fois pour toutes,
We must once and for all
rejeter cette violence qui n'apporte que mort et destruction
reject this violence that brings nothing but death and destruction,
et bâtir un avenir meilleur et plus sécuritaire pour les Israéliens comme pour les Palestiniens.
and build a future that is better and more secure for Israelis as for Palestinians.
Before I conclude, I want to take a step back, look beyond the horrifying numbers and statistics, and remember the people. Remember Vivian Silver, a Canadian-Israeli women's rights and peace activist who devoted her life to building bridges between Israelis and Palestinians. Souvenez-vous d'Alexandre Luc, un jeune homme qui venait de chez moi, à Montréal, et qui a perdu la vie en tentant de protéger
Sorry, I missed that.
life to building bridges between Israelis and Palestinians. Souvenez-vous d'Alexandre Luc, un jeune homme qui venait de chez moi, à Montréal,
Remember Alexander Luke, a young man who came from my hometown of Montreal
et qui a perdu la vie en tentant de protéger les autres personnes lors
And
du
who lost-
festival de
and who lost his life trying to protect other people during the Nova Music Festival.
musique Nova. Souvenez-vous de Netta Epstein, un amoureux de la nature très fier de son héritage canadien qui,
Remember Netta Epstein, a lover of nature who was very proud of his Canadian heritage, who,
sans hésiter, a sauté sur une grenade
without hesitation, jumped on a grenade in order to save his fiancée.
pour sauver sa fiancée. Remember Judith Weinstein, a compassionate mother of four whose family spoke glowingly about what an incredible person she was when I had the honor of meeting them a few months ago. Let us remember 1,200 innocent souls taken from us far too soon. May their memory be a blessing, but more than that, may their memory be a revolution to bring about a world where violent Jew hatred, like the attacks of October 7th, are unimaginable. Merci beaucoup, mes chers amis.
Shalom. Merci. Thank you. Today, our ears are filled with the echo of horror. Our eyes are darkened with the shade of genocidal cruelty. 365 days ago today, we saw exacted upon the Jewish people the worst and most deadly attack since the Holocaust. An attack carried out by a genocidal death cult, Hamas. They deliberately targeted civilians, children. They burned people alive, tortured children in front of their parents. They mutilated dead bodies. And then they displayed their cruel, sadistic, diabolical horrors in posts that they would put on the internet, not even trying to conceal their evil. And why did they do it? Not because there was an occupying force they were trying to expel. Israel had voluntarily expelled itself from Gaza 15 years ago through the incredibly painful and even controversial decision to arrest its own citizens and drag them out of the Gaza Strip into Israel proper, leaving Hamas the ability to govern that land without any interference whatsoever from Israel, but with, of course, total occupation by the terrorist regime in Tehran. And why now? Why at this moment, suddenly, after 15 years? Was it because war was breaking out? Exactly the opposite. It was because peace was breaking out. Israel had just successfully signed the Abraham Accords with multiple Muslim Arab states, with momentum towards a potential deal with Saudi Arabia. Imagine that, the Jewish state signing a peace deal with the home of Mecca and Medina. What a bright new era that would be for everyone except for the tyrants of Tehran, for which such peace would be their worst nightmare. And so, to interrupt the potential of that harmony, they instigated, planned, financed, and coordinated this direct assault, and since that time have unleashed a 7-front war on the Israeli people, a war that has been relentless and cruel. But before we talk further about that, let us take a moment to honor the victims. Let their memories be a blessing. To think of the courageous hostages and their families in anguish. Bring them home.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
So much for nonpartisan. So much for nonpartisan.
What an
Supposed to be a
arse.
nonpartisan event.
What an arse. He cannot resist it, can he?
Nope. The MC of the event actually said in his address, nonpartisan. We've invited people here for a nonpartisan event. Like I said, I saw some kids ask, why is he there? Because he should be there.
He should be there. Yeah.
This is an event for all Canadians.
Yes, correct.
This is not a political event. This is an event where we talk about people. The leader of the opposition should be there. So should have Mr. Singh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why he was not invited or why he didn't show up. Maybe he was invited and maybe had a different... But there are events in the history of a nation that happen at which you invite all the party leaders
Yes.
Because you want to show that you stand together as a united front. Right? This guy's not doing that.
This is the same guy that during the late Prime Minister Brian Mulroney's funeral on the steps of the church decided to launch into a campaign speech moments after the ceremony was over. The service had ended, and he had to launch into a campaign speech. This is who Pierre Poilievre is.
Oh, you think that was a campaign speech? Wait until you hear what's coming next in this one.
Oh, I know. I know.
And yet, Jews here at this home are re-victimized again and again. After watching the Jewish homeland torn apart by this genocidal attack, now they see the same motives and vicious hatred carried out on our very streets, with a staggering increase in hate crimes, most of them directed at the Jewish people. Why now? Why now? Now, we might say, well, of course, because tensions are inflamed by the war between Hamas and Israel. But wait, this is not the first war that Israel has had to fight. There have been countless wars where Israel has had to defend its very existence. And those wars did not spill onto Canadian streets. In 2000, it's true. It's true. In 2008 and 2007, 2006, when Israel was forced to fight back against Hezbollah in Lebanon, there was no violence on our streets. We did not have hate crimes overtaking Jewish communities, protests at Jewish hospitals, Jewish homes, Jewish businesses. When there was conflict again in 2014, that did not spill into our streets. So why now? Why all of a sudden has this hatred found such a home here in Canada? Now, some say it's because our people are flawed. The government needs to fix the people, censor the people, better control and corral the people. Well, is it really the people who are the problem? It wasn't the people who appointed Laith Maruth, an anti-racism expert, after he had said, and I quote, "Life is too short for shoes with laces or for entertaining Jewish white supremacists with anything but a bullet in the head." Given a Government of Canada grant, this individual supposedly to fight racism. Or Birju Datani, appointed as the Commissioner of the Canadian Human Rights Commission, after he wrote, "Terror is not an irrational strategy pursued solely by fundamentalists with politically and psychologically warped visions of a new political, religious, or ideological order. It is, in fact, a rational and well-calculated strategy that is pursued with surprisingly high success rates." The head of our Human Rights Commission. Or an Ontario school that forced children to attend an anti-Israel protest. Kids divided and told to wear different colors to identify their ethnicity in Canada. My friends, this ideology that seeks to divide our people based on race and ethnicity, that has led to these horrifying outbursts of hatred, are not from the bottom up, they are from the top down.
I got to stop that for a sec. Sorry. I don't.
That speech has no place there in that room at that time.
Exactly. Like what
But
the hell?
but look at the reception he's getting
Yeah.
compared to the Prime Minister. You can see the applause is way different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's decibels higher. Now, as the kids are pointing out here on the chat, if it comes from the top down, I'm still old enough to remember Skippy the Dishes bringing Tim Hortons to a convoy where swastikas were present. Seems like some projection here.
A little bit.
Let's keep going.
Just a second. Bring it back.
And it has been further accentuated by a government that has let in someone who appears to have been let into Canada and given citizenship to someone who appeared to be in a video mutilating a citizen on a crucifix in the Middle East on behalf of ISIS, someone who then went on to try and stage another attack in Canada. Yet another terrorist came into Canada, preparing to stage an attack from Canada to Jews in New York. All of this, well, our tax dollars fund UNRWA, an organization that has helped carry out the attacks of 9/11, of October 7th.
Oops.
Freudian slip?
Oh, that's not a Freudian slip.
Of course not. Of course not.
That was not a Freudian slip.
So, when they say that the government needs to be the watchman of the people, I say, who watches the watchman? I say, it is not for the government to change the people. It is time for the people to change the government. When I stand here today with you, with my brilliant and courageous heroine deputy leader, the great Melissa Lantsman, and reiterate the commitment that I've made to you and that I've made to our Muslim brothers and sisters, and that is that we will always take one stand. No matter where we are, we as conservatives will say the same thing. I love the Muslim people.
No, there it is again. We as conservatives.
Yep.
Not Canadians. They stand apart from this nation. Remember that, people.
It's supposed to be a nonpartisan event.
Nonpartisan event, and this guy's been on a campaign speech for the last 10 fucking minutes.
We need to change the government. He literally said.
What an asshole.
He absolved everybody in the streets for their responsibility for the vandalism and the intimidation and whatnot by saying it comes from the top down.
You ever want to just slap somebody?
Mm-hmm.
You don't do it, but you can certainly want to. Boy, would I like to slap the shit out of him. Not going to do it. It's just a human emotional reaction to an absolute shit-given campaigning at a nonpartisan event.
Yes, Kit Peace Bio, he just did blame UNRWA for 9/11.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Okay. I can only take a few more minutes of this crap.
And when I go into their mosques, and I do proudly visit their mosques, I tell them I am a friend of Israel. I say the same things there that I do here. We can no longer accept political parties sending one MP into one place to say one thing and another MP into a different place to say exactly the opposite. We will put behind us this ugly ideology that has divided our people, and we will reclaim the country that we knew and loved. And we will do it based on the teachings of the great Wilfrid Laurier. If you don't mind me praising a liberal, he was asked, what is Canada's nationality? And he could not list an ethnicity or a religion. We were already mixed up way back then. We had people from all over the world. So he said, Canada is free, and freedom is its nationality. We united around the idea that it didn't matter where you came from, it mattered where you were going. We united around the idea that you could worship God in any way you chose, that you had the freedom to think what you wanted, say what you wanted, be who you wanted, and to be left in peace with your family. And that is the principle that will unite us again. You have my word that I will stand up for freedom here at home and around the world. We will secure our borders to keep terrorists out. We will
What in the hell does this have to do with oh my God. What does this have to do with the reason he's supposed to be there? Oh, what an absolute shit-gibbon. What a fucking asshole. What a disgusting excuse for a man. He's campaigning at a memorial, a nonpartisan event where they're supposed to remember the victims of a horrific terrorist attack.
This is no longer about
were murdered.
Yep, this is no longer about the victims or about the
About him.
people who have lost. It's all about him.
It's all about him. Self-centered narcissist piece of human fecal matter. Fuck you, Polyev. You asshole. You self-centered asshole. Jeez, I cannot believe this guy. And yet, I'm not surprised. It's like there is no low that is too low for him. He will make everything about himself at all times. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is this world coming to? I'm sorry for getting so vulgar and dropping so many F-bombs, but come on, man. I can't handle this shit.
Scream to me, you refuse to be a statesman. Keep going.
I will make clear to universities that if they spread anti-Semitism or make Jews feel unsafe and uncomfortable on their campuses, they will not be eligible for federal funding. We will defund anti-Semitic organizations and activists. We will defund UNRWA and give the money to the Palestinian people who are suffering. I will vote against anti-Israel resolutions at the United Nations. I will back Israel's right to defend itself, which includes retaliating against those that attack Israel. Israel must be able to prevent Iran from using nuclear weapons. If necessary, that means proactively striking Iranian nuclear sites and oil installations to defund the terrorist regime.
Okay, stop there for a second. Notice the second slip. This one was a Freudian. He said he was about to say to prevent Israel from using nuclear weapons and then caught himself. Remember? And that last little bit there. That's concerning. That's concerning. Attacking oil wells. He's literally talking about bombing oil wells and nuclear facilities. This should have sirens going on. A lot of people in the chat are going, "Oh my God!" A lot of people in the chat here are saying that they are more disturbed by the amount of applause.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. There was, if you were paying attention, when he got to the point of who watches the Watchmen, you will notice that his entire demeanor changed. He knew he had a receptive room, and he got happy.
Yeah,
and then he's throwing in much more energy, and it's like he's connecting with the people he wants to connect with. But how is any of this in the best interest of Canada and all Canadians?
None of it. None of it. None of it. It's like that province up north. None of it.
Yep. Keep going.
All right.
Terrorist regime. We will keep our fists closed to terrorism, but our hands open to peace. We must work with the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Qataris, and anyone who's willing to talk and work and build towards a greater peace, including the permanent recognition of the Jewish state's right to exist as a Jewish state now and forever. This is the bright future we have in store. In a land where all the Abrahamic people can enjoy their religious places of worship in peace and in harmony, the way Canada once was, that is the way that we can rekindle the memories of those brilliant souls that we lost a year ago today. I was speaking with Rabbi Mendel Kaplan And I asked, how do I address the loss and find some glimmer of hope in it? And he said that those we lost can live on this world, in this world, even as they've passed into the next. And I said, how? He said, by carrying on the Jewish traditions that animated them.
Canadians.
Wait a minute. Hold on here. Passed on to the next. Do you know anything about Judaism?
No.
There's no heaven.
Not that.
There's no heaven in Judaism.
Okay.
There isn't. You're dead, that's it. It's over, it's done. There is no afterworld.
Yes.
So what the hell is he going on about now? Just see if I can catch up to where we were. Sorry, I hit the button by accident.
Jewish people tried and true on Simchat Torah, spirits renew, dancing with scrolls.
I think that was a little further up. Yeah.
I went a little too far ahead, sorry.
Their flames, a beacon. We just passed the new year. The Jewish state's right to exist. Anyone who's willing to talk and work and build towards a greater peace, including the permanent recognition of the Jewish state's right to exist as a Jewish state now and forever. This is the bright future we have in store. In a land where all the Abrahamic people can enjoy their religious places of worship in peace and in harmony, the way Canada once was, that is the way that we can rekindle the memories of those brilliant souls that we lost a year ago today. I was speaking with Rabbi Mendel Kaplan, and I asked, how do I address the loss and find some glimmer of hope in it? And he said that those we lost can live on this world, in this world, even as they've passed into the next. And I said, how? He said, by carrying on the Jewish traditions that animated them. He said, 1,000 years from now, we can honor them by having an Israel that carries on the traditions that have been there 1,000 years before. We just passed the new year. It's 5,785. So together with the rabbi, wrote a little poem about what Israel will look like in 6,785. Against all odds, Israel stands strong. Friends by her side, where they belong. In 6,785, we'll see her people firm, eternal, free. As Shabbat candles flicker bright, mothers welcome Friday night. Their flames a beacon ages old, 1,000 more, this story told. The shofar's call at Rosh Hashanah echoes through time, a sacred drama, awakening souls since times of yore, 1,000 years and many more. On Yom Kippur, in solemn prayer, they cleanse the slate with tender care, repairing bonds with the divine, traditions lasting past our time. Mezuzahs guard each doorway's frame, yarmulkes worn without shame. Stars of David, proud and bright, eternal symbols of their might. The Jewish people tried and true on Simchat Torah, spirits renew, dancing with scrolls, joy undenied. Shema Yisrael, they've always cried. All foes who sought to break their will now lie defeated, cold and still, condemned to history's trash they fall. Forgotten, they're disowned by all. Yet Israel's children stand, keeping alive throughout the land the memory of those who fell in Jewish hearts. Their stories dwell. Unbroken, they'll endure each test. Their timeless faith forever blessed. The culture and tradition never die, and still they'll say, Yisrael Hai. Thank you.
Yeah. Went over really well in the room. You saw as it panned out, saw standing ovation.
Mhm.
Kathy asked, was all the applause pre-recorded or was it live? No, it was live.
It was live.
It was live.
So it was a campaign stop for him.
Yep.
That's all it was.
Little campaign.
Just a campaign stop.
Now,
when there's no election happening, the
now again,
dropped.
yes, the Kitlan Amil, it appears that some people weren't clapping. It's true. But if you're going to an event like this, right? Not every Jewish person in Ottawa was in that room.
No.
Odds are that politically you are very, very engaged by this subject. Odds are, seeing how the people that are on the Palestinian side of it, seeing what they're doing and a lot of the liberties that they're taking, when you're politically engaged to the point that you're willing to show up, you probably are coming in there with a position that's pretty entrenched. The people that were there to hear the leaders of their nation connect with their pain and their sorrow and even some of their fears and say, I see you, I understand you, I'm with you. That's one thing. But he went in there and he actually exploited that pain and that fear.
Yes.
He laid blame on people other than those who committed the atrocities.
Of course he would.
Kit Linda said, I thought it was protocol to not have someone speak longer than the Prime Minister at these types of events. The Prime Minister spoke for just over 7 minutes. Polyev spoke for close to 16.
Mm-hmm. Because it was all about him. He refuses to step out of the spotlight for a split second. He's never met a mirror he didn't love. Did you hear what Minister Joly had to say about it?
I'm not sure about after. I know she said some things before that I have a clip or, but yes,
I have a clip
I would love that. But let's continue going through Pierre before we do this here.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that he said that weren't necessarily off the mark, right? All of this is happening because peace was breaking out,
Yes.
partially.
Mm-hmm.
Terrorism is a business. If Israel starts signing deals with Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all those other, that kind of makes it harder for the state sponsors of this terrorism, this business, to be in the business that they're in. That part's true. But then what do you do with that knowledge? Kind of matters. He mentioned that when we had situations 2006 to 2008, there was none of this stuff that we see on the streets now. I'm just doing a little quick internet research. 2008 protest, Canada, Israel.
Mm-hmm.
February 27th, 2008. Protesters take Palestinian spirit of resistance to the streets.
Yeah.
There were Palestinian flags there. There were probably people chanting death to Israel then.
Yeah. But no. His government was in power, so that didn't happen. All the bad stuff only happens under the current government. Nothing bad ever happened under his government.
Globe and Mail. Canadians take to the streets to protest airstrikes. I mean, it's... Here, 2008. Palestinian flags waved in front of the Israeli consulate on Friday night amidst cheers of Free Palestine as protesters took to the streets. The Toronto branch of the Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid staged a rally Friday night in front of the Bloor Street office of the Consulate General of Israel to protest Israeli interference in the Gaza Strip. The demonstration brought together pro-Palestinian groups from around the Toronto area to call attention to what they call an Israeli siege of Gaza. Quote, we have some quotes here. What Israel is not doing is not justifiable, even on an international scale. A few Canadians do know and strongly oppose what's going on in Gaza. I think the people of Canada united can certainly make change happen, and we already saw what happened when Prime Minister Stephen Harper tried to support the illegal Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 2006. Israel doesn't need to be at the Gaza Strip. There's no value to them being there. All these things, these positions were being held. There were protests there. There were now. Is it as gross and violent and intimidating as things are today? Probably not.
No.
2006, 2008.
It didn't also last for a year.
Yes. It also didn't result. The incidents that led to that also didn't result in 1,200 dead members of the Jewish faith.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and hostages and people that had been sexually assaulted and defiled.
You remember when the head of Hezbollah was sorry. You remember when the head of Hezbollah was murdered about a week ago,
mm-hmm.
and I had said at the time, settle down. I had said at the time that although he was a very bad man who did very bad things, he had become moderate. After that attack, he realized that Israel was going to respond 100-fold and said, if I had known they were going to respond like that, I never would have launched the attack. So he was stepping back and staying out of it because he knew that it would lead to all-out war. Sorry, she's really got to go. My apologies. Which is why... I'm sorry.
Take her.
I got to take her out. But yeah, he had stepped back because he realized that Israel was going to respond 100-fold, which is why he stepped back. So that's why it was like, whoops, okay, that was a bad decision. So that did not go on for a year, whereas this war has been going on for a year, and it's been quite crazy to say the least.
Now, it's important to point out that if we can say he became more moderate, he became more moderate because of the consequences to him and his own people, not because he suddenly developed a love.
No, it was an escalate to de-escalate from Israel that he decided, they're going to wipe us from the map, so we're just going to step back and leave it be. Yeah. He was not a good man. He did a lot of bad things. He was a terrible human being.
Yeah.
Period.
Now, in that speech, when Pierre started talking a little bit about the victims, the 30 seconds they actually got in that whole 16-minute thing, it was juxtaposed immediately after talking about this all happening because peace was breaking out and they had to stop that. You will also notice the choice of very colorful language. Now, while the Prime Minister said that these things were gross and made him sick to his stomach, you have Pierre Poilievre with diabolical and the very vivid words to describe all of this, right? Which plays into that. So the words matter, the choice. Talks about the hostages, and that's when he links in his slogan, bring them home.
Yeah.
Bring it home. Completely crass. Now, who in that audience is not going to applaud for hostages being brought home?
Of course.
Right? 2000, then he goes into, when he says it comes from the top down, he goes into the Laith Marouf thing. That yes, the government had been warned about by some MPs.
Mm-hmm.
But when it exploded, what did they do? They pulled the funding and started an investigation. Correct. Didn't mention that part, right? He just mentioned it as if the money just still stayed there. Because when you talked about the Canadian Human Rights Commission guy, we talked about it on the show. He didn't serve one day in that position.
No.
There was a conversation between the Minister of Justice and this individual that led to this individual deciding, you know what, I'm going to resign before I even start.
Mm-hmm.
When he talks about being against the anti-Israeli protests, as we mentioned when we did a little stop, but he brought provided aid and comfort to protesters at an event on the hill where there was Nazi insignia present. He also had absolutely nothing to say when 3 members of his party had brunch
With a Nazi.
with an actual Nazi
Yes. Yes.
from Germany.
Yes. Which is her party's been kicked out of the European Parliament because they've been
Yes.
branded as extreme.
Since. And he still has not felt the need to come back and say, you know what? Wow, this has transpired since. You know what? I didn't say anything then, but I'm saying something now.
Yeah. No, he said nothing. Not a word. All we got was a blurb from Brian Lilly who said that he denounced it, but he's never publicly acknowledged it, let alone denounced it.
Then he suggests that there are people within the government who are saying one thing to pro-Palestinian and Arab Canadians and other things to Israeli Canadians when he is the master of the deux langues du discours.
Mhm.
And just look at what he says about the CBC in English and Société Radio-Canada in French. Well, he doesn't actually say anything about Société Radio-Canada in French at all.
Of course not, because that's a threat if he does.
He says that he loves Muslim Canadians, but I'm still old enough to remember that snitch line.
Yeah, that his party.
And them trying to exploit immigration ceremonies. But he says he visits the mosques proudly, but goes there to tell them, I'm a friend of Israel.
I don't believe that for a second.
I don't believe he's ever said that word in a mosque.
No.
And I don't believe that there's anybody that's ever seen the prime minister or member of the government in a mosque that doesn't believe that they are also friends of Israel.
I gotta take her out. I'm sorry. She's really going crazy. So if you want, you can keep rolling, but I've got to take the dog out because she's losing her patience right now.
Okay. I'll actually, you know what? I think I will close on this.
I have the clip of Melanie Joly.
Yes. Let's do that.
This is she's not having it.
That's what you do when you hold a position of power in these difficult times. You support people. You show moral leadership. You don't freaking gaslight people. Not on a day that is so important for the country. And clearly that's what Pierre Poilievre was doing today. And clearly what he was saying, he was trying to play petty politics on the backs of victims. And so that's why not only should he apologize for what he did, but clearly the guy's unfit to become prime minister because Canadians deserve way better.
I'm right with her.
Yeah.
On this one. And the look on her face.
Disgusted.
That's genuine disgust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not put on. She's feeling that.
Oh, yes.
We have a leader of the opposition for whom there is no pain, no tragedy, no sorrow he will not exploit in order to say, hey, I'm your friend. I've got your back. Come with me. But look at the way he does it. Look at all the people he torched along the way at an event that was supposed to be about the victims, the survivors, and those who love them. Look at all the things to which he set fire during those 16 minutes. And come and tell me that our Minister of Foreign Affairs is not 100% absolutely correct here.
Mm-hmm.
You can stand with the Israeli people. You could stand with victims. You can stand with people who have suffered immeasurable and unimaginable loss without doing that. There were 2 people on stage that night. There was one person that was a statesman who maybe didn't say everything that everybody in that crowd wanted to hear. But that didn't do damage. And there's a person that gave the crowd exactly, or some of the crowd exactly what it is they wanted to hear. But along the way, created an incredible amount of damage. It's not responsible.
No, it isn't.
Because if he was the leader of this country and he did that the next day, what does he do when he has to go and speak to Canadians who are Arab, whether Christian or Muslim, or of no faith? What does he do? This is not how you do it. This is not how you do it. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
Yes, we do.
All right, kits and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Our programming director, Lola, has decided that...
Time to end the show.
Time to end the show. We hope that you... well, I don't know if we can say we hope that you love listening to us on this one.
No.
We hope that you found this...
enlightening, informative.
Enlightening, informative, fair, balanced, a good middle road. But we felt that this was important to bring this to you. I saw a lot of comments. Please, no more PR. We bring it to you because you have to hear it.
You have to hear it. I know. I don't like listening to it either. I had to tap out a couple of times, but you have to hear it.
You have to know what he's saying when you're not in the room.
Yeah. You have to.
And how he's saying it. You have to. If you're going to make an informed choice, you have to hear what the other guy's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about this. If you would like to make sure you don't miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl, because she sponsors our pod page. Podpage.com/TheTrueNorthEagerBeaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words, as you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And if you scan that QR code, that will bring you directly there. And if you go there and click subscribe when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. So there you go. If you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine right on time. Thank you very much, lovely. Have a beyond awesome day, everyone. Remember to smash the button before you leave. And if you want to smash with our buttons, then you go to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have 3 buttons, like, share, and subscribe, for you to smash with. And we hope that you do, because when you smash, we get cash. Just came up with that. And if you would like to support us in other ways, then the QR code by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our tip jar. That's at the coffee page. Our coffee page is ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. Thank you so very much for everything that you contribute. It really means the world to us. It helps us very much to produce the show, the content of which we hope that you enjoy and get something beneficial from. So we appreciate all of your donations. And if you are not able to contribute financially, that's okay. Really, it is. Worry not a second more, because the gift of your participation and the gift of your attention is the one that we do cherish the most. And we do love to hear from you. If you have any comments about today's show, particularly something that you wish we would have done, something we could have done better, please do let us know. It's how we improve. We do listen to what you have to say. Sometimes we're not able to accommodate. Sometimes we'll take a decision that doesn't agree with yours. That will happen. But we do listen, and we will bring your concerns. We will read them. We will be transparent. So please do. Our email address is truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. You can reach us on our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, our YouTube, on our YouTube page, yes, you can just leave us a comment there, or on our Twitter feed @TrueEager. We read everything, and we really appreciate that you take the time to send it to us. Because democracy is something that you do. Sorry, I have to sneeze.
Go ahead. You're allowed. By all means. Please sneeze.
Because democracy is something that you do, we have some provincial elections coming up in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick. Please do what you need to do to to plan your vote, to find out about your candidates, and all that kind of stuff. Also, if you have friends from the Jewish community, Check in. Check in. Take some time. Take a moment. Show you care. Right? Because there are some people that are actually living this every single day.
Yeah, I was blocked by a couple yesterday because I didn't comment on it.
Yep.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I don't mean that empty. I'm sorry if I didn't live up to your expectations.
Yep. It's you can accept what we say is true as to why we did not do it yesterday. Or you could say that's not good enough. You should have done it anyway. Everything else should have been pushed aside for that. I get how you can make a case for that. I understand.
40 minutes was not enough time to deal with it.
We're at an hour and 51.
Yeah.
And we talked about nothing else but we wanted to do this right. We wanted to give it the attention that it deserved. Hopefully, we did that today. It wasn't yesterday. We know that. What we did today is not going to be enough for a lot of people.
No, it'll never be enough. We can't please everyone. We'll do our best to try, but we're not going to.
Yeah. Get see by if you have friends from the Arab community, check in on with them too.
Yeah.
But given the day, given that on the 7th it was 1,200 Jewish people, if you make a little extra effort to reach out there this week, that's acceptable. Nothing wrong with that. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
Yeah. I can't be all things to all people. And if you believe that my response or lack thereof on a specific date and time is insufficient and that you need to block me as a result, well, that's your choosing. I'm sorry if I've disappointed you. I can't be all things to all people. So I can be the number one thing in the world to this little dog who is desperately wanting to go out right now. So I'm going to have to cue the cock and get her gone. I'll see you.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.